Johnny Talk Sports here to provide you with my Week 7 college football predictions. Hard to believe we're already in Week 7, but the season is just flying by fast. And once it hits October, and once it hits November, it kind of feels like the season goes at double or triple speed. And we're almost heading that direction. It seems like just last week we were doing Week 1 predictions, and we're already in Week 7. So, a little bit away from being at the halfway mark of the college football season. So, making pretty good progress. Last week, not a good week, 5-5, which is, compared to the last 2 weeks, is rock bottom, considering I was 9-1 in Week 4 and in Week 5. And to make matters worse, only 2-3 against the spread, which the most recent 2 weeks, 5-0 and 5-0. So right now, I feel like I'm at rock bottom at this point, but the only place to go when you're at rock bottom is up. Just escape the rock. And that's what I plan to do this week. I am planning to respond. I am going to try to go at least 7-3 this week for my straight up predictions, and I am planning to go at least 4-1 against the spread this week. So we will see how that goes. Alright, first matchup this week. Oklahoma State versus Kansas State. And this matchup, it could have been a good matchup, but Oklahoma State just couldn't take care of business against Iowa State. And Kansas State, they lost in the waning seconds against Baylor on the road. So who do I pick in this game? This seems like a crapshoot at this point. You can literally take any team and you have a good chance of maybe being right or being wrong. So, 50-50 shot here. Only reason why I'm really picking this game is I had to choose 10 games to pick from, and this was one of the 10 games. I know, not really the most interesting game, but of course, now that I say this, we're going to have like 8 lead changes in the last 7 minutes of the game. Now it's going to be the game of the year, now that I said that. But I will take Oklahoma State to win this one. I know in the comment section recent weeks, Mason Tinkler's in the comment section, kind of saying that Oklahoma State's going to have a down year. He was kind of, I don't know, he's been kind of negative about his Oklahoma State Cowboys so far this season. But they beat Boise State, and, you know, they could have a chance to possibly get to a reasonable bowl game, which wouldn't be too bad considering that right now they're kind of at a rebuilding process, considering they don't have Mason Rudolph anymore, and they don't have James Washington anymore. So right now, Oklahoma State, they are just trust the process with the Cowboys. I'm taking Oklahoma State, kind of, which is why I'm wearing orange. I know, kind of giving a hint on my picks, but whatevs. Next, we have the Pittsburgh Panthers at the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. The Notre Dame has come off another signature win. That is their 3rd signature win of the season. And Pittsburgh did beat Syracuse last week, which it could come off as a quality win. Well, it could have if they would have gotten past Clemson a couple weeks ago. So, if Notre Dame can win this game, I think they could be in the driver's seat to go 12-0 and to be one of the 4 to be in the College World Playoff. And I will pick the Irish to win this week. Maybe they won't win it by as many as what we're anticipating, because the last time Notre Dame, when Notre Dame beat Michigan, the very next week, they kind of struggled a bit against Ball State. Like, they kind of had to grind it out in the last couple of minutes. This could be another one of those games like that, but I think the Irish will still get it done. Alright, next we've got Michigan State versus number 8 Penn State, and Penn State, after losing to Ohio State, they are back home this week to play the Spartans. And the Spartans could play spoiler to Penn State, because Penn State still has some national championship aspirations right now. Because if Penn State can win out, I think there's a good chance. Like, right now, realistically, I don't really know how many teams could be in it right now, but I can guarantee you at least 15 teams are still in it, and Penn State is easily one of those teams. And I will take Penn State to win this game, because I just think they're going to play the chip on their shoulder, because they think they could have beaten Ohio State, and really they should have, but they just let the game get away from them again this year. Second year in a row, they could have won the game against Ohio State, but they just let it slip away from their fingertips. And I think they play with a chip on their shoulder. Penn State responds. Next, we got number 10 UCF versus Memphis. Now, these two teams played a classic in the conference championship game last year. But I think UCF, their winning streak will continue. I've got the Golden Knights winning this matchup. And, hey, Central Florida's still undefeated. So what do you think about that, Nebraska fans? Despite Scott Frost not being there anymore, the Knights are still somehow undefeated. So how about that? Just shows how overrated of a coach Scott Frost is. Alright, next we got number 22 Texas A&M versus South Carolina. Now, both of these teams are coming off big and emotional victories last week. Texas A&M beating Kentucky in overtime, technically pulling off an upset against the number 13 team in the country, despite Texas A&M being a 5.5 point favorite. And South Carolina coming off a last-second field goal against Missouri. So both these teams were coming off great wins. Well, really not great wins, but A&M's win was pretty good, or pretty solid. South Carolina's, it was kind of meh. But both these teams were coming off big wins. Both of these teams last week show that they have heart. And which heart is going to beat harder in this matchup? And I think it'll be Texas A&M's. I just feel like Texas A&M, they have more confidence right now. Because last week when they beat Kentucky, it just showed that they got a lot of heart. They can grind it out. They didn't let the game get away from them. Their defense played great in the game. And I think they're going to carry that momentum because they've had South Carolina's number in the last couple of years. So I've got the Aggies. I know I really picked my Texas A&M Aggies in the picks, but I've had to do it 2 weeks in a row because I just feel like this is an opportunity for them to get some wins here. To kind of get to a salvageable bowl game, kind of get into a decent one. Hopefully they can finish in the top 20, but we'll see what happens. All right, next we've got number 6 West Virginia at Iowa State. Now, Iowa State is very notorious for pulling off big upsets in the months of October and November. They're very notorious for that. But will an upset happen this week in Ames? I don't think it does, but it's got the potential of happening. I think West Virginia wins this game, but for some reason I just feel like Iowa State is going to cover whatever the spread is. I haven't looked at it. I haven't seen anything for myself, but I think Iowa State is going to make this game a lot closer than what everybody's thinking. Because Will Greer did not have a good performance last week against Kansas, throwing 3 interceptions. Is that on the back of his mind? I feel like he could be a Heisman contender right now, but he's got to respond this week. But I think he'll respond, but he's going to have to earn this one. He kind of got lucky to play Kansas last week because throwing 3 interceptions in a game typically doesn't give you a win necessarily. If Will Greer throws 3 interceptions again this week, I don't think I like West Virginia's chances. But I think Will Greer responds, he puts the 3 interception game behind him, and I have got West Virginia winning, but not by that much. I only see West Virginia winning this game at a maximum of 13 points. Next we've got number 19 Colorado, who is surprisingly undefeated, versus USC, who's kind of in a rebuilding process right now. They're missing Sam Darnold. JT Daniels, the freshman quarterback, only 18 years old. But it's kind of an honor to be an 18-year-old and playing college football, starting quarterback at USC, kind of a blue-collar school. So Colorado, I think they're going to keep on winning. I just feel like USC, it's just not really their year to do anything right now, or maybe do anything of the sort. But they do play Notre Dame in their last game of the season. So could USC kind of be a spoiler down the road for someone like Notre Dame? I don't think they spoil Colorado's chances. I think the Buffaloes stay undefeated. I like Colorado to get the win. All right, now we're into the good games this week. Number 15 Wisconsin versus number 12 Michigan. Now I think this is going to be a great matchup. I think there's going to be a defensive battle. The last time these two teams played in the Big House, it was a defensive battle for most of the game. But in this one, I see a lot of things happening. I think the difference in this game is going to be how the quarterbacks play. You got Alex Hornibrook on Wisconsin, and you got Shea Patterson at Michigan. And I think the difference in this game won't be the running game. I think the running game will do their thing. I feel like both these teams kind of have the same play style. And not just because in the Big Ten Conference, but they just have the same type of play style. Wisconsin, Michigan, they both just like to run the ball, like to grind it out, but Wisconsin does it a little bit better than Michigan does. Just pound the rock. But the difference in this game will be the quarterback play. And I think Shea Patterson will make more plays than Alex Hornibrook will. And I've got the Michigan Wolverines getting the victory here against the Badgers, especially in that big house. Home field advantage. You got the home field in prime time. I think this is equivalent to a Michigan Wolverines victory. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that think that Michigan is overrated. But Michigan's only loss was on opening weekend at Notre Dame, and they've played better as the weeks have gone along. I know that their competition really isn't that steep, but they're getting better, they're improving. Shea Patterson's improving the further along the season goes along. And I think Michigan gets the win. Next, we've got number 7 Washington versus number 17 Oregon. And I didn't know who to pick in this game. I think this game is being an offensive battle. I think we're going to see a lot of points in this game. The Pac-12 is not really known for defense. But I think Washington wins an offensive battle. I think this is going to be one of those games that first 1 to 50 wins. And I think Washington gets a 52-49 victory. Possible game-winning field goal inside maybe 2 minutes to go. Huskies win and they keep their season alive. And let me just mention real quick, as I said that there's probably earlier in the video, where there's about 15 teams that still have a chance to make the college football playoff. We got an elimination game here against number 15 Wisconsin versus number 12 Michigan. Elimination game. And, well, not really an elimination game kind of, but about 95%, because the committee's never let in a 2-loss team in the 4 years they've done this. So, based off of history, Wisconsin and Michigan, elimination game. Washington and Oregon, elimination game. Because the loser of those 2 games, they'll have 2 losses on the year, and about 98% of the way eliminated. And finally, the game of the week. Kind of an elimination game. Number 2 Georgia versus number 13 LSU. LSU must win to keep their college football playoff hopes alive after not being able to get it done last week against Florida. The Florida defense got to Joe Burrow in this game, especially in the second half. And Georgia, they haven't really been tested yet. This is their first real opponent of the year. It's interesting to see how Georgia's going to come out, because Georgia's been playing well so far, but not necessarily the best competition or the steepest competition. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. I just feel like with this being in Death Valley, Georgia's going to have to earn this victory. This is the first time this season that Georgia's going to have to play. They're going to have to bring their A game, but will bring their A-plus game against a team like LSU. Because LSU will not make it easy on them. LSU is not going to surrender without a fight, especially a quarterback like Joe Burrow, who has waited his entire college career for a game like this. Home field, the number 2 team in the country coming into your town, keeping your team's playoff hopes alive. I struggled, and I really struggled, to decide a winner for this game. I think the game is going to be very low scoring, but with a final score of 19-14, I've got the Georgia Bulldogs winning this matchup. Now, based off of these picks, 3 teams are going to be eliminated from college football playoff contention this week. Well, at least 98% of the way eliminated. If LSU could probably win out, I feel like LSU could lose this week, and if they could win out, I think they'd still get in, because they would have beaten Miami, they would have beaten Auburn, and they could have potentially would beat Alabama if they were to still keep on winning Texas A&M. So LSU, even if they did lose this game by a score of 19-14, at least somewhere really close and realistic, they could still make the college football playoff if they win out. Because Auburn would have been in the college football playoff last year if they would have beaten Georgia in the SEC title game. It's going to be interesting how these final scores are going to come out this weekend. Because if Michigan were to lose by 1 point to Wisconsin, and Wisconsin won out until the Big Ten title game, it's kind of going to be interesting, because even though some teams could potentially get eliminated this week, it'll still be interesting to see what the final score is going to be, what the outcomes are. That is definitely something the playoff committee is going to be looking at once they get their ranking started, which I believe is going to be coming in the next couple of weeks. I think it's, I don't know, it's either next week or maybe the week after that. But still, the committee's going to have a lot to look at. There's a bunch of teams still fighting for 4 spots. So those are my predictions this week. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you next time. I will see you later this week for the picks against the spread. Let's hope I can do better than 2-3 this week. The goal is to go 4-1, so we'll see what happens. I'll see you then. Have a good night or day whenever you're watching. I will see you next time.